about your hard life, and you're so privileged. It's just so weird.
Bill Maher didn't just clap back at Meghan Markle. He launched a comedic air raid. One monologue, a few savage punchlines, and boom. Duchess drama trending worldwide.
They're ridiculous after that.
When Maher aims, he doesn't nibble around the edges. He goes full scorched earth. Meghan's latest podcast appearance became ground zero for his verbal warheads. So privileged, yet still whining, make it make sense. Within minutes, her earnest anecdotes were reduced to smoldering punchline rubble, and social media cheered on the spectacle. This wasn't a gentle ribbing, it was an unapologetic, laugh-out-loud roast that left the internet howling and the Duchess reportedly fuming. Buckle up, the fallout is just getting started.
Yeah, they're just it's just so great. This is why it's so nice to not have makeup on. Yeah.
Let's set the scene. Meghan Markle recently appeared on a podcast with Jamie Kern Lima, a self-made millionaire known for her uplifting story, who seemed intent on helping Meghan reshape her public image. Despite the relaxed atmosphere, the barefoot shots, and the no-mako casual vibe, the whole thing spectacularly missed the mark. When Bill Maher and half the internet collectively cringed, calling it so forced, they weren't wrong. While Meghan aimed to come across as a down-to-earth, relatable mom baking cookies and doing school runs, what many saw was something quite different, a carefully staged, performative display that felt more Hollywood production than authentic home life.
You know, you can't be, these people were so mean to us and poor us, and we don't want all this attention, and then let me write a book about how much we don't want attention.
From the very first line, critics said the whole thing felt staged. The dramatic sighs, the breathy voice, the awkward emphasis every time Meghan referred to Harry as HH. Everything seemed off. His heart is even more beautiful. No, just stop. Here's the kicker. Meghan framed this appearance as stripped down, raw, and emotional. The problem? It didn't come across that way. Not even close. Take the so-called makeup-free moment. Meghan supposedly showed up barefaced, but critics were quick to call it out. Look at the lighting, the perfectly styled hair, the subtle gloss on her lips. This was no accidental beauty moment. It was studio ready. And then came the tears. Or rather, the glaring lack of them. Wait, no tears? She cried in spirit, they said. With her acting background, Meghan breaking down on camera isn't impossible, but the execution here didn't convince anyone. No mascara streaks, no puffy eyes, just a well-lit woman blinking a little too much. They want you to accept this carefully crafted fragility as genuine. Sorry, I'm not buying it. And that's the part that really hit home.
I know it sounds so cheesy, but my gosh, it's the most perspective building.
Bill wasn't just calling out the performative nature of Meghan's appearance. He was tearing apart the entire narrative. This isn't new. Meghan's story has followed the same script, just with different settings. Life is hard, the media is cruel, people are unfair. But she's always rising above it all, except this time the audience isn't applauding, they're groaning. This was Oscar-level fake crying. Even my toddler throws a meltdown with more conviction. Did she really say waking up at 6:30 a.m. is intense, girl? Bill just voiced what everyone was thinking. She's exhausting. And it wasn't just Bill Maher calling her out. Body language experts weighed in, longtime observers spoke up. Even people who knew Meghan before her royal glow-up chimed in. I knew her before all this, they said. She didn't talk like that. She didn't act like this. It's all a performance.
Show where I chat with female entrepreneurs and friends.
Let's break down what made this podcast appearance such a cringe fest. First up, the victim narrative. It's Meghan's greatest hit, played on repeat until the needle's worn out. She described her day, packing lunches, doing drop-offs, attending meetings, as if she were climbing Everest from 6:30 a.m. to 9 a.m. I'm not home, she said. Welcome to adulthood. Want a medal? Most moms were nodding along. Not in sympathy, but in disbelief. But what Meghan painted as an overwhelming routine is just everyday life. Millions of parents do the exact same thing without a royal title or a $14 million Montecito mansion. And they certainly don't cry about it on a podcast. Next, the manufactured cozy mom aesthetic. She's selling warmth, wholesomeness, and relatability, but like a Hallmark card dipped in soy milk, it feels mass-produced and emotionally hollow. She's trying so hard to be the barefoot goddess sipping tea, but we all know it's catered by a private chef and filtered through 3 PR advisors.
Trying to prove something. You have to prove that you're enough. You have to prove that you're pretty enough. You have to prove that you're smart enough. You prove that you're a good wife or a good friend. And I was like, I am just so done with the prove it game.
And that's where Bill Maher struck gold. Beneath all the soft lighting and carefully scripted vulnerability lies one glaring truth. This is all strategy, a brand refresh, a repackaging, Meghan 4. But this time, the public isn't buying it. They want us to play along, but the show just isn't good anymore. So why does this matter? Because the gap between what Meghan says and what people actually see keeps widening. Voices like Bill Maher's aren't holding back anymore. They're calling it what it is: privileged performance art disguised as vulnerability. And in a world starving for authenticity, nothing turns people off faster than fake emotions served on a silver platter. Bill Maher didn't just call it out. He tore down the curtain, exposed the puppeteering, and handed Meghan Markle her most brutal review yet.
Is my favourite source for royal news, and quite right, not that we're biased. Harry said in his BBC interview that he was forced to step away from royal duty due to security concerns. I thought Harry and Meghan had decided to leave royal duty before the security assessment that downgraded their security coverage occurred. Can you help me understand Harry's statement?
Coming up next, the bizarre obsession with titles, private HRH scandals, and the moment even her biggest offender said, okay, now this is too much. Let's talk about Meghan's favorite 4 letters, HRH. You'd think by now she'd have let it go. She left the royal family, criticized the institution, even accused them of being cold, racist, and unfeeling. And yet, she still clings to those titles like a toddler clutching a security blanket. The Duchess of Sussex brand is stamped on everything: podcast intros, Netflix documentaries, charity appearances, children's books, even a jam jar. Somehow it's all by the Duchess of Sussex. Here's the contradiction driving people crazy. She doesn't want the royal responsibilities, but she insists on the royal recognition. No palace duties, but yes to palace perks. It's like quitting your job, suing your boss, and still trying to use the company name on your LinkedIn profile. And the RH drama? Oh, it gets even spicier. Behind the scenes, insiders say Meghan was furious, yes, furious, that her children didn't automatically receive HRH titles. When King Charles announced that Archie and Lilibet would not be styled as prince and princess, she reportedly expected more. She wanted the full royal package, gold trim and all. But the king stood firm. No HRH for the Sussex children. Why? Because Harry and Meghan are no longer working royals? Cue the quiet rage. According to palace sources, Meghan took this as a personal insult. And what followed? The passive-aggressive leaks. Insider quotes about how the kids deserve equal treatment, narratives about modernizing the monarchy and protecting their legacy. Classic Meghan damage control. But here's where it gets ridiculous. You can't demand HRH status for your kids while simultaneously telling Oprah the monarchy is archaic, toxic, and fundamentally broken. That's like saying your house is infested with rats and then begging to move your kids back in.
Story. Apparently, palace officials have been trying their hardest to strip Harry of his titles.
Even the most sympathetic royal watchers are starting to tap out. Meghan wants the crown without the court, the glory without the grind. Here's the truth. Titles in the royal world come with duties, tradition, and sacrifice. But Meghan, she wants it all without lifting the orb. This obsession with image is bleeding into every corner of her public life. Take the infamous cooking show that Netflix just canceled. Supposedly a wholesome project about family recipes and cultural heritage, insiders say it was really just a glamorized lifestyle flex. More avocado toast than actual substance. Think Goop, but with a tiara. Netflix took one look and quietly pulled the plug. No public statement, no apology, just delete. Meghan played it cool in public, but behind the scenes, sources say she was devastated. This wasn't just a show. It was a rebrand, a soft launch for Meghan as the domestic goddess. But the public wasn't buying it. Too curated, too polished, too fake. And when even Oprah's endorsement can't save your image, you know something's seriously broken. That's why Bill Maher's takedown hits so hard. He didn't just go after one podcast appearance. He went after the whole act. The curated, calculated, contradictory-filled brand Meghan has become. Let's be honest, there was a moment, maybe back in 2018, when Meghan Markle had the world in her hands. She was fresh, global, empowering, a biracial American actress marrying into royalty. It was fairy tale level PR gold. But somewhere between Montecito and Spotify, she lost the plot. She got too polished, too rehearsed, too plastic. Every appearance turned into a lecture, every interview a confessional, and every confession framed like history in the making. But the audience isn't looking for saints. They want real. And that's the one thing Meghan can't seem to deliver. When she cries, it looks rehearsed. When she jokes, it feels forced. When she says she's just like us, she's speaking from a $14 million mansion with 2 nannies and a security team. People are starting to notice. She's living in a palace, pretending to struggle like she's in a studio apartment. Every time she talks about pain, she's selling it. Even longtime fans are quietly turning the volume down. And let's not forget the Hollywood silence. Remember when Meghan and Harry first signed their Netflix deal? The town was buzzing. Every A-list name was reportedly lining up to collaborate. Now, crickets. She's not showing up at the Met Gala, skipping Vanity Fair, Oscar parties, and not getting booked on late-night shows unless there's a clear PR angle. And when Bill Maher, one of Hollywood's longest-standing insiders, openly mocks you on air with zero fear of blowback, that says it all. Because if there's one thing Meghan's been banking on, it's Hollywood loyalty. But loyalty runs thin when your brand starts slipping.
With your guests, when was the last time you were surprised and delighted?
Last night, and also this morning, but last night when I went back to my hotel.
There's a reason big studios are quietly distancing themselves. Netflix scaled back, Spotify cut ties, and Disney never followed up on that elephant documentary buzz. Even A-listers are avoiding public associations. Reese Witherspoon no longer name drops her, Serena Williams keeps it vague, and Oprah remains silent. So what's left? A woman still clinging to the idea that if she just tells her story one more time, people will finally understand her. But the problem isn't the story, it's the storyteller. You can't keep repackaging the same sob narrative and expect applause when the public has already moved on. They want authenticity, not autobiography. Now that comedians like Bill Maher are saying what everyone's been whispering, the floodgates have opened. He wasn't just being mean, he was pointing out the absurdity, the delusion, the performance that's lost touch with the audience it once captivated. And Meghan, she's standing in the spotlight, tears queue, title in hand, still waiting for applause. That's not coming. Let's talk about Montecito magic, or rather, the illusion of it. While Meghan's been selling a steady stream of quiet luxury healing crystals and lavender lattes, someone just ripped the veil off, and no, it wasn't some random TikToker, it was a celebrity guest who got a front row seat to the real Sussex lifestyle and didn't hold back. According to a high-level Hollywood insider, Meghan and Harry's Montecito home isn't quite the peaceful paradise they portray. Behind the Instagram-filtered facade lies a pressure cooker of tension, branding meetings, PR meltdowns, and yes, allegedly very staged family time. The source, a former guest who visited expecting a weekend of calm, ended up feeling suffocated by control, no phones allowed, NDAs on arrival, and a strict schedule for everything, from breakfast smoothies to outdoor photo ops. That's not family, that's a production set. And it gets worse. The same insider revealed Meghan has a full-time brand consultant on site. Not an assistant, not a stylist, a brand consultant, someone whose entire job is to make sure every moment, every word, outfit, and interaction is perfectly on brand. So when Meghan posts about morning walks with the kids, there's probably a lighting crew and a professional lens on standby. And now even Harry is reportedly pushing back. Here's the thing, Harry never wanted this level of curated chaos. He wanted out of the royal machine, yes, but not to trade it for Meghan's Montecito matrix. Insiders say he's been quietly pleading with Meghan to tone it down, to take a step back, to stop performing and start living. One source even claimed Harry longs for Mrs. Normal, but he doesn't know how to find her anymore. And when your own husband thinks the act has gone too far, that's not just a red flag, it's a 5-alarm PR fire. But Meghan won't let it go because for her, this isn't just a lifestyle, it's a survival tactic. Without the brand, the mystique, the Duchess sparkle, what's left? A former actress with a handful of canceled deals and a very expensive mortgage. And speaking of canceled deals, there's a reason Meghan's empire is starting to crack. Big brands are waking up. Netflix quietly dropped the cooking show. Spotify yanked the podcast after just one season. And even Dior distanced itself after rumors of a brand partnership spiraled and then fizzled. Why? Because the Meghan Markle effect is no longer a sure thing. It's a gamble. For every headline she generates, backlash is brewing. For every carefully posed smile, there's a wave of think pieces dissecting her authenticity. And Hollywood, the land of optics, is taking notice. One former network exec put it bluntly, she's become more risk than reward. No one wants to get caught in the crossfire. And that crossfire is everywhere. Just look at the comment sections. Not long ago, Meghan had an army of defenders, ready to shut down any criticism, with cries of racism, misogyny, or media bias. Now, even former supporters are asking the hard questions. Why does everything feel so forced? Why is there always a camera when she's just being a mom? Why do the interviews feel more like monologues? The tide is turning. The curtain is lifting, and behind it stands a woman still trying to play Diana, even as the audience begins to leave the theater. Here's the kicker. Diana didn't try to be relatable, she simply was. She didn't cry on cue, she cried because she felt. She didn't deliver speeches crafted by image consultants, she spoke from the heart. Meghan, on the other hand, is scripting the grief, curating the pain, and monetizing the struggle. And that's exactly why people are tuning out. Even Harry seems to be fading into the background. Have you noticed? Less vocal, less visible, always a step behind in group appearances. Body language experts, yes, they're back, have picked up on the shift. Crossed arms, downward glances, forced laughter. There's even speculation that Harry's friends back in the UK have been quietly trying to reconnect. A source told the Daily Mail they feel like they lost him to Meghan's orbit, but now that orbit is collapsing, they're extending a lifeline. Whether he takes it remains unclear. One thing's certain, Harry's face in interviews no longer scream liberation, they whisper regret. And while Meghan continues to double down, pushing new content, teasing future memoirs, whispering about film deals, the audience is growing weary. You can only repackage the same story so many times before it becomes parody. Even Saturday Night Live took a jab, mocking the Sussexes' endless rebranding with a skit featuring Meghan as the Duchess of Disconnect, pitching everything from oat milk to a scented memoir candle. It was brutal, hilarious, and painfully accurate. And that's what stings the most, when comedians, talk show hosts, former fans, and even ex-friends start laughing at you instead of with you. The fairy tale is over. What we're watching now isn't a royal reinvention. It's a slow momentum implosion. One headline at a time, one awkward interview at a time, one desperate rebrand at a time. And Meghan, she's standing right in the middle of it, still clutching her title, still rehearsing her next podcast intro, still hoping the world hasn't seen behind the curtain. But the illusion is gone now.
Duke and Duchess of Sussex are beginning a 3-day visit to Nigeria as part of publicity around the Invictus Games.
If Bill Maher lighting that match wasn't enough, let's talk about how that fire spread all the way to Nigeria, a place where Meghan probably expected open arms and warm praise, but instead got the diplomatic equivalent of a polite thanks but no thanks. Just when the Duchess thought she could pivot from comedy club punchlines to international goodwill tours, the Nigerian government slammed that palace door shut. According to multiple diplomatic sources, Meghan and Harry made a private request to visit Nigeria again, reportedly planning a second unofficial royal tour to build on the buzz from their May visit. But this time, Nigerian officials weren't biting. Why? Because the first visit was already a bit of a mess. Let's backtrack for a second. When Meghan and Harry touched down in Abuja last year, they were greeted with military parades, ceremonial garlands, and a spotlight big enough to make actual heads of state sweat. Nigerian news outlets questioned why this non-royal, non-government sanctioned couple was receiving state-level attention. Critics slammed the visit as nothing more than a PR performance, one that allowed Meghan to play Duchess again without any official UK backing. But here's the thing, behind the photo ops and charity smiles, real tensions were simmering beneath the surface. The Nigerian Ministry of Foreign Affairs reportedly never signed off on the full scope of that visit. It was arranged mostly through private organizations and Meghan's Archewell Foundation, which meant it bypassed certain diplomatic protocols. Translation, they went around the adults in the room to throw their own party.
Last picture, she's got a good old meeting, okay?
Now, fast forward to this year. Meghan and Harry tried to make lightning strike twice, but this time, the Nigerian government was ready. Their response was firm. No further visits will be considered without official clearance from the ministry, period. Oof. That rejection sent a very clear message. This isn't a red carpet you can just roll out whenever your brand needs a boost. But here's where things get even juicier. Sources close to the Nigerian government hinted they were uncomfortable with how Meghan used the previous visit to assert a kind of cultural claim. especially after she publicly declared on her podcast that she's 43% Nigerian based on a home DNA kit. During the visit, she leaned heavily into that narrative, wearing traditional fabrics, referring to Nigeria as my country, and implying a personal connection that some leaders found, well, a little performative. Some Nigerians loved it, no question. Meghan does have a segment of fans who appreciated the representation, but others saw it as exploitative, a well-rehearsed script meant to align her with the global South in a way that felt less authentic and more opportunistic. You could almost hear the government saying, "We're not your rebranding backdrop." But Meghan's team predictably saw this as a missed opportunity. According to insiders, Archewell had already begun quietly planning documentary content around the second trip, possibly as part of Meghan's future Netflix projects, or even her rumored cooking and lifestyle brand, which was supposed to tie into heritage cuisine. Yep, you read that right, a potential Nigerian food segment linked to her DNA results. If you're feeling secondhand embarrassment, you're not alone. So with the visit canceled, Meghan and Harry are now back at square one. No royal titles in active use, no new podcast buzz after the Leonardo DiCaprio debacle, and now no Nigeria round 2, which brings us full circle back to Bill Maher's brutally honest takedown. Because what he said wasn't just about comedy. It was about the image problem the Sussexes can't seem to shake. They keep trying to pivot from victims of palace drama to global philanthropists, podcast hosts, Nigerian princess energy, and lifestyle brand moguls. But none of it sticks. Why? Because every pivot feels like a performance rather than a purpose. And now, the rejection from Nigeria has exposed something deeper. Global goodwill isn't guaranteed just because you wear a title or trace your roots through an ancestry test. Respect, especially from nations with complex colonial histories, has to be earned, not borrowed for optics. And that's the real heartbreak in all this, because somewhere in there, Meghan may have genuinely wanted to connect with her roots. But when everything is packaged like a content strategy, when even a humanitarian visit feels like a trailer for the next Archewell special, people sense it and they start closing their doors. Even Bill Maher, who's built a career on offending people, wasn't outraged at Meghan. He just wasn't convinced. And that's worse, because indifference is far more dangerous than criticism. Indifference means you're no longer relevant enough to even argue about. And when Nigeria, the biggest economy in Africa, says not this time, is a clear sign the world might be moving on, whether the Sussexes are ready or not. So here we are. Meghan Markle, once hailed as the fresh face of royal rebellion, now caught in a cycle of reinvention that feels less revolutionary and more like reruns. The podcast pulled, the cooking show canceled, the brand blurred. What began as a global love story is starting to read like a cautionary tale of overexposure, overreach, and the ultimate price of trying to control a narrative in a world that thrives on contradiction. And while Meghan is reportedly scrambling for her next big pivot, trying to reframe setbacks as strategic retreats, the audience is already halfway out the door. Because even Hollywood knows you can't keep selling a fairy tale when the magic's gone flat. And Harry? He's caught between the royal legacy he ran from and the brand experiment he walked into. Now, standing amid the debris of deals gone cold and critics gone viral, it looks like the prince who wanted freedom may have traded one gilded cage for another, just with different walls and a better Wi-Fi signal. At the end of the day, it's not the fancy titles or Netflix cameras that define you. It's the truth people feel when you speak. And right now, the feeling around Meghan isn't empathy, it's exhaustion. Exhaustion from the constant PR spin, the curated vulnerability, and the narrative that always seems to orbit back to her. In a world where authenticity is everything, maybe the one thing Meghan Markle never quite mastered was how to just be real. So what's next? A memoir, a comeback, or a quiet fade into Montecito moonlight? Only time will tell. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive, hit that like button and subscribe for more no-fluff breakdowns. And let us know in the comments, has Meghan overplayed her hand, or is there still a second act coming? Until next time, stay sharp, stay curious, and don't fall for the PR glitter. It always fades.